I think just about everyone had a fun and exciting experience as they were a kid, the likes of which they can hardly recall today. Those memories just fade away in life. Mine took place when I had just turned 7 years old. In that era, my family lived in a tiny 2-bedroom rental house on Parkwood Street on the east side of Saginaw, Michigan. It was my mom and dad and 3 kids, plus occasionally Grandma's dog Fluffy. Although Dad worked 2 jobs, he spent every free minute with us kids. Summer hose etiquette was an important lesson that Dad introduced to us. My folks were always looking for something to catch my interest, keep me from hanging out during lunch period. They tried getting me involved in sports, like badminton. That didn't work out too well. Photography. I only took 1 photo, and that was of Mom. Most boys my age would really be interested in trains. But my dad was a railroad engineer on the C&O, so I'd been climbing on engines since I could walk. Railroads were just the place where Dad worked. Then on May 15th, 1964, Mom saw this article in the Saginaw newspaper. It struck her that her oldest son, me, really liked looking at the big freighters out on Lake Huron, or when they came into the Saginaw River. Maybe this would be something that would hold my interest for more than a nanosecond. So she asked me if I'd like to go aboard one of the big ore boats. To most regular folks around the Great Lakes, all of those big freighters were simply called ore boats, no matter what they were hauling. I probably chirped, "Sure," in reply, and then forgot all about it. So the following Sunday morning, Mom stashed my baby brother at Grandma's house, packed my little sister and myself into whatever junker car the family owned at the time, and we rattled across the decrepit 6th Street Bridge to the Huron cement dock. There waited a big freighter and a crowd looking to go and tour it. I recall very little about that adventure. Yet one thing that caught my attention was the crew's mess room. Their dining table's surface had indentations placed at every seat. Someone asked what those were for, and a crew member said that those were to keep the plates of food from sliding around in heavy seas. He went on to say that this vessel was built during the war and intended to sail on the big ocean waves. I thought that was strange. What sort of an ore boat was this? I imagined it in war gray, bristling with guns. But there were no guns on our tour. Many years passed, and my memory of that day faded. However, during my career as a Great Lakes Maritime author, I always remembered that table. And I always asked myself, what boat was that? It nagged me as I spent countless hours researching other lake boats and their stories. Finally, late one night, I decided to go into newspapers.com and look in the Saginaw News to see if I could find that little article that my mom had stumbled upon. Since my family had moved from that rental home and into our own house in the early summer of 1964, I started at the end of June and worked my way backwards. I figured it would be a tiny clip, nearly hidden among the advertising. Nope. It was a 1/4-page ad. and the lakeboat was the cement carrier Paul H. Townsend. The following day, this photo appeared of the crowd boarding the vessel. If you look closely, you can see a crew-cut little boy racing up the steps. Right next to him is a very patient woman with a similar hairdo to my mom. Just in front of her is a little girl, the size of my sister. Okay, I'm not saying that those are us. But there is one lingering interesting fact. Our neighbor 2 doors down was a photographer for the Saginaw News. Anyway, the Paul Townsend began her existence as the Hickory Call in early 1945. However, she was launched as the Coastal Delegate just as World War II was ending. Built as a C-1M AV-1 vessel, she was hull number 1328 for the Consolidated Steel Corporation shipyard at Wilmington, California. In 1945, she was chartered to the Southern Steamship Company and renamed Coastal Delegate. Sold on November 7, 1951 to the Huron Transportation Company, she actually did several voyages for Huron to the West Indies after that sale. Finally, she was taken to Hoboken, New Jersey, and Bethlehem Steel Company's shipyard for conversion to a self-unloading powdered cement carrier. The date was June 6, 1952. When the conversion was finished, the tug Eugenia Moran towed her to New Orleans. From there, a different tug took her over and towed her up the Mississippi River, through the Illinois waterway to Lake Michigan. Once entering the lake, she was taken to the American Shipbuilding Yard at South Chicago to complete her conversion. She was soon fully rigged for lake service, and on April 30th, 1953, she was christened Paul H. Townsend, in honor of the new president of the Huron Cement Company. Yet the little motor vessel still bore all of the accommodations aft outline of a saltwater ship. So, during the 1957 season, a contract was made with the Great Lakes Engineering Works at Ashtabula to lengthen her by 106 feet. At that same time, her forward accommodations were reconstructed to Great Lakes style. She returned to service in 1958 with the profile she would carry to the end of her career. At 447 feet in overall length, she was easily able to service Huron cement ports all over the Great Lakes. During the 1965 season, her former Huron green hull was repainted in Huron cement off-white. That color still lives today on the cement carrier Alpena. The Townsend served until December 15, 2005. She was then laid up at the Mart Dock in Muskegon. Her parent company, Inland Lakes Management, had replaced most of their fleet, which they had acquired from Huron Cement, with a tug and barge operation. Additionally, the demand for cement products had diminished as the U.S. economy and industry rusted away. Finally, on September 7, 2017, she was towed to Port Colborne, Ontario, for scrapping. Thus, the first Great Lakes freighter that I ever stepped foot on was scrapped by Marine Recycling at that port in 2020. Yet, she still sails as one of my radio-controlled model boats in her original Huron green. My wife says the Townsend is her favorite of all my model boats. Of course, green is her favorite color, too.